Saeed, and I have been with this company for wonderful 7 years plus, and I'm a partner with the company, and I have a bachelor degree in electrical engineering. I also have a master's in business administration. But I have worked for some very interesting companies. I worked for PepsiCo International as an IT manager, and you can imagine the pressure of working in IT. I think that we all understand the importance of that. And then we also have the and I think that you are able to see now the presentation, if I'm not mistaken. I'm in at this particular slide right now. So this is the development is our passion, and this is our mission. But let me move on. This is the portfolio of products that we have, and then we also have decided. I'm looking at my portfolio over here. So there you go. So this is my portfolio. I worked for some very interesting companies. Some of them are still growing, and some of them are not with us anymore. For example, PepsiCo, as you probably know, is a worldwide leader when it comes to, or they usually, depends how you classify them, but in the Middle East, North Africa, they are the leaders. In other countries, they are number two or number one, depending on where you are. But at Pepsi, I learned a lot as a manager, especially in the IT industry. You can imagine the pressure of competition and everything. And then I decided to move to Sun Microsystems, where it has been, to me, one of the most exciting companies I worked for. Unfortunately, the company, despite the fact that it is very innovative, very creative, was acquired by another company, Oracle, and now Sun Microsystems is part of Oracle. Also at Sun, I assumed many managerial positions, and I realized how important it is to work on all fronts, whether upward, laterally or horizontally, and downward with my team. And then I joined Cisco Systems as well, where I spent some valuable times in the sales field, and also Cisco was an exciting company. So I'm putting all that experience and I'm expressing it through Meirc to reach out to individuals like yourself who are interested and keen on developing themselves. At Meirc, I do lots of things, from people management to people development, communication, negotiations, but I focus quite a bit on leadership and management, strategy and planning, because I feel that's where I developed a big chunk of my experience. I'm an avid cyclist. I love cycling, and I consider it my passion when it comes to sports. So I hope you also have your own passions. I think it's very important you have passions in your life. Moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit about the webinar objectives. So what are you going to get out of this webinar? As I mentioned, the name of the webinar is Managing Up, Down, and Across. So I'd like you to understand who you are, first of all. I mean, of course, this is something that we run on a 5-day course, and we have one coming up. But in your case, within this hour, I'd like to give you a flavor of how do you know yourself? How do you work with your manager? How do you work with your, peers and with your employees? How do you work with your peers? And how do you operate within the culture of your company? So these are key objectives, and we cover them quite extensively in our course, 5-day course. Also, I like you to remind you that whenever we do or we run our public courses are backed by some blended learning capabilities. This means that in case you would like to continue your education, you can continue your education through some websites we provide, where you can continue your education on the topics that you have attended our courses for. So this way you can stay on top of things, and we like that quite a bit. We think it's a value add that is very valuable for you. Now let's talk into the first objective, managing yourself, and this is very critical. So let me ask you a question here, and this is the question. So self-awareness is a key attribute to succeed as a person. What do you think? Is this true or false? If you can answer via the chat, it's perfectly fine. But I want you to think about it, because I think the most important person on this call is you. And I want you to understand how important it is that you are aware of yourself, who you are, what your attributes are, you know. So are you aware of who you are, your weaknesses, your strengths, your capabilities? And I think that's what makes a fantastic manager rise above the average manager. I don't want you to be an average manager. An outstanding manager is somebody who is aware of himself or herself and aware of their attributes. They're aware of their weaknesses and they work on that. So, so the question, the answer, of course, is true. I mean, you have to be self-aware, and it's an important part of your success. Now, what does it mean? Well, one of the key things is that we have to create self-awareness. You, as a manager, you have to, you know, be self-aware. Now, there are several techniques that we encourage others or managers to follow. But regardless of the technique, at the end of the day, the technique takes you one step forward. But do you believe in that? I mean, it's a sort of it's a philosophy, because a person who enjoys strong self-awareness is a person who is willing to develop themselves on many fronts. So one of the techniques that we recommend is, of course, meditation. I mean, take a moment during the day, half an hour, 15 minutes, maybe an hour, and just have that reflection upon yourself. Think, who am I? How am I doing? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How did my day go? Get along? What are the issues I faced? How did I face them? How did I talk to a colleague of mine? How did I resolve a problem? All of these things are very, very critical. You know, we're not perfect, but we strive toward that. And one way to do it is to have that self-reflection, and think about the things that you're doing during the day and work on how to fix them. So meditation is very important. That may require that you be seated by yourself, you know, for, as I said, 15, half an hour, maybe an hour, it's up to you. But I think half an hour is highly recommended. This is your time. It's for you, nobody else. And sometimes it's very difficult to even find half an hour during the day. So as a manager, I think you owe it to yourself to have that self-reflection. The other thing that we always encourage managers to do is, what are your priorities? And during the meditation area, when you're thinking, meditation time, when you're thinking about yourself, you should be able to come up and think about your priorities. And this is something ongoing, by the way, because priorities shift and change during the day. So it's very important that you think about your priorities. Some of them you accomplish, some of them don't get accomplished, some new ones come up. So it's important that it is a work in process kind of thing. It's very important that you always work on your goals. And of course, we can always recommend a psychometric test. Some of these tests are very simple, straightforward. Some of them are quite complicated. So, but nonetheless, my take on these ones, because I have done some psychometric tests myself, because I want to discover my strengths and weaknesses, is that at the end of the day, you find out from at a certain moment in time that these are your strengths and weaknesses. That's how I operate. But that's not enough. Now that you found who you are, why don't we start moving toward the second step, a higher level in terms of performance, in terms of fixing our attributes, because we all have flaws at the end of the day. And sometimes they are backed by some very strong attributes, but we need to also keep an eye on everything. So these stats basically help you uncover some of the areas that you may have and you are not aware of. And they will help in many ways to make you a better manager. Of course, there's always the matter of asking a trusted friend. And of course, notice that trusted friend is very important. And the trusted friend will say it as it is. You don't want somebody to lie to you or tell you something that is not true. Probably you'll spot it right away. But as far as we're concerned, it's very important that you ask somebody that you can trust, because usually they give it to you as it is. Could be in a very diplomatic way, but at the end of the day, they're telling you how they see you. And the reason I encourage this one is because we always rank ourselves as managers higher than what people think of us. So it's very important you hear it from different angles. And of course, getting regular feedback. Now, that's interesting because you as a manager, where do you get the feedback from? I mean, at the end of the day, you're the manager. But believe me, there are many ways to get your feedback. You can get it from your peers, you can get it from your direct manager or supervisors or director or vice president, wherever you are in the pyramid of hierarchy. But it's very important you receive feedback. You could get it from your employees, by the way. Usually during the appraisal session, for example, you can ask your employee, is there something that you like to point out to me? And they, if an employee is honest and they like you, they will tell you certain things that you could fix as well. So being self-aware, is very important, and there are many techniques that will help you in becoming self-aware. Now, that being said, it's also very important that when you become self-aware, you have to make sure that you understand. One way to understand to become self-aware is from the lens of your job description. Because remember, the reason you were promoted to this level, the reason you were chosen for this role, is because the company believes in your capabilities. They believe that you are able to deliver something different than either your predecessor or somebody else. So that is why it is very important that you look at your job description. This is the first step you should be able to do, is understand your role. Now, you have been selected for a reason, as I mentioned, but that reason, in many ways, is written in your job description. So what's your job description all about? What are you supposed to do? Now, once you understand your job description, that's one thing. But remember, the job description is what you're supposed to do. But that job description should be backed by goals. And that's why I said in the previous slide that you have to set your priorities. So the goals are your priorities. So this is where you agree with your manager or director or vice president on what you're supposed to deliver. These things are important to your manager, to you, and to the organization as well, because you are there to make a difference. Remember, you are there to make a difference. So it's very important that you work these goals either yourself and share with your vice president or director or manager, or you can exchange some of them between you and your superior. And the goals are very important because in the nature of goals, they are the nature of goals, they are forward looking, they are optimistic. So be very careful how you write your goals, because goals are geared toward self-driven individuals, positive individuals. So when you write goals, make sure that they are positive goals as well. Now, another thing that you can do, in addition to, when it comes to your job description, is there somebody that you can mentor you? Is there somebody who can coach you in the organization? Especially if you are a new manager. So you might tell me, Jamal, I'm not a new manager. I've been in this position for the past, 5 years, 6 years, and I feel that, I can manage myself. That's good, fantastic. But suppose that you are a new manager and you were recently promoted for this role. Well, you can always get a mentor who can guide you through these things and help you understand, how to be a good manager, especially, and here I always say, pick the right person. Always pick the right person who can mentor you. And of course, for you to understand your, how to do your job, is deal with other departments, talk with other departments and see what is it that you want from me. Because if you are, and for example, IT services, you are responsible for IT services, talk to other departments and tell them, what is it that you want from us? If you are HR, talk to other managers and departments, say, what is it you want from us? If you are in sales, talk to your customers and ask them, what is it you want from us? So it's very important that you meet with others and understand what is it that they expect from you. What are the expectations? And don't shy away from that one. Having that conversation is very, very powerful. First of all, it shows that you really care. Second, it shows reasonable maturity, because you are a mature person and you're asking others, listen, I'm in this job and I want to deliver value to the organization, to you, and of course to our department. So having that conversation, I think, is very important for any manager. Now, that being said, once you understand your job description, what are the strengths and weaknesses? Do you have what it takes to do the job? Nobody is born perfect. So let me be very clear here with everybody on the call. You are never born perfect for the job. As a matter of fact, throughout a career, you will find out that I always have some gaps. So it's very important you understand your own strengths and weaknesses, okay? So what is a strength, for example? A strength is something that you can leverage, things that will push you to push you further, to do your job better. But on the other side, you have the weaknesses. And some weaknesses are so strong that can lead to the downfall of a manager. Okay, for example, lack of listening skills, love for authority and control. Now, these are some weaknesses that you have to make sure that you overcome. But at the same time, some of your strength is your communication skills, your negotiation skills. So these things are very important you understand them. So always be aware of your strengths and weaknesses. Strengths you have to leverage, but weaknesses you have to fix. Okay, you might fix them halfway, you might fix them halfway or whole way or fully, but at the end of the day, you have to keep working on that. Look, you are under the uh, uh, under the spotlight. You as a manager, people are looking at you. So it's very important that you always bring up the best in you. Should you make it something to worry about? Not at all. It has to be something natural, and you don't need to dwell on it as much as develop the passion to develop it. Okay, so in order for you to develop and leverage your strengths and weaknesses, you need to know them. Okay, so you need to understand them, and there are many ways that you can understand your strengths and weaknesses. All right. And now, once you figure out the strengths and weaknesses, and we can do many assessments behind that one. For example, you are not very, you want to find out if you are a good negotiator. We have assessments for negotiations. You want to find out if you are very good in setting goals. We can have assessments around setting goals, or we have exercises of setting goals. This way, you understand: am I doing it right or wrong? You see, the thing about is I'm worried. I'm concerned about the gaps. Make sure that you always look at the gaps and make them as minimum as possible. So now we have your self-awareness, we have your job description, you're looking at your strengths and weaknesses, but at the end of the day, what's the outcome? You as a manager should always add value. So I'm going to repeat that again because this is extremely important. I as a manager should always add value. And that's why you are there in that seat. That's why you are given resources. That's why you have people managing, you're managing people. So adding value is something very critical. And you should understand that one from day one. The minute you become a manager, you have to understand that you're adding value. I wish every employee understands what adding value is. Sometimes we go through life not understanding why am I doing this job. Maybe for you it is the salary and that's enough. But as far as I'm concerned, a professional manager, a manager who is going out of his way or her way to be successful, they understand the value factor. It's very important you understand how do I add value. So adding value at work is not by the number of years, how many years I work there. It's more or less something that you're doing in your organization. For example, how do you cut cost? That's one thing. You're adding value. How you generate money? How do you generate more value? For example, ideas that work tremendously. How do you improve the efficiency of something? You improve the process, for example. How to use automation, for example. How to improve the quality or the quantity of a product. How to fix things that are not working. How do you solve problems? And how do you prevent a future problem from happening? All of these things are methodologies to add value. And you need to always look at these things. And so you can tell from these 6 items that I'm sharing with you on this slide, you can tell that there's unlimited amount of things you can do. Unfortunately, some managers got fixated with one thing and they only focus on that. I'm asking you, don't, because a solid professional manager who knows who he is or she is always find a way to add value. So always add value. And you have to promise me that, because adding value is very, very critical. That being said, you have to motivate yourself. So as you can see, in this particular segment, I'm talking about you. And it's not easy to be motivated. And you have to agree with me that being motivated is not easy today. Why? Because, you can't, you'd want to be focused, but there are so many distractions. So the first victim of this distraction is you. Why? Because you're being stretched in all different angles. So that takes a bit of amount of motivation. You have to motivate yourself to add value, understand your role, work on your strengths and weaknesses, and motivate yourself to perform at a very, very high level. And today it's extremely competitive out there. So yes, it's not only internally that you have to be focused, you also have to be focused externally. How can my job make a difference for the organizations I'm working for? So being motivated is extremely critical today. You have to motivate yourself. And The other thing I want to remind you, don't expect as a manager that your manager will be telling you good job or not. Those days are gone. I usually tell my employees good job, well done. But when it comes to me, I don't expect my manager to come to me every day and say, well done and good job. I'm a manager now. So I have to motivate myself. I have to motivate myself on how to fix weaknesses, how to set goals, how to find value. So it's very much in my own backyard now. So one way to stay motivated is, stay healthy. I think that being healthy, working, having a workout every day, feeling good about yourself is very, very important. You have to feel good about who you are. And I don't want you to beat yourself up, especially if a mistake happened or an employee is giving you a hard time or your manager is giving you a hard time. I want you to feel good about yourself and think how special you are. The fact that you are a manager now, it's a special moment for you. So one of the key things is you have to take care of yourself. You have to stay healthy because if a mental healthness depends a lot on the physical wellness. The second thing is spend time with coworkers. But here I have a caveat. I have a caution here. Make sure that you spend time with those who are good people, people who help you expand your thinking, those who are expanding their mindset, those who come up with ideas, those that you can exchange ideas with. You see, the thing about is that if you spend your time with negative people or people who nag or people who cause problems, the fear is that you might become like them. Probably not. But remember, influencing can come in different shapes and forms. So what I ask you to do is pick your coworkers very carefully and spend more time with them. And of course, create moments for inspiration. Now, these moments of inspiration are pretty much what I talked about in my first slide, is your meditation, where you sit down and you think, how can I fix a problem? What can I do to make things better? Of course, pushing yourself. Pushing yourself is very important. This is item number 4 right over here. So it's very important that you always push yourself. And that goes through your goals. Of course, remember, we talked about the goals. And always make sure that you regenerate. So regeneration is something that I want to do something new. I want to learn a new technique. I want to read a new book about something. These are your passions, by the way. I mean, you develop yourself to become good at something and always pick something new. For example, you might pick a sport. You might learn how to be a coach. You might learn how to fix problems. So always figure out something new that will make you better. Okay. So these are some things that I'm asking you to discover. Now that being done, let's move on to the next slide. So now we talked about managing yourself, but now let's move into managing up. Of course, managing up is not easy. And I am confident in many ways that many of you may not be very happy with your manager. Now, the problem may not be with your manager. Maybe he is or she is not perfect. And remember, you are not perfect, so they are. They could be good, but they may have some issues. And this is life. So it's very important you understand that no matter what, your manager is an important resource for you. You have to work with your manager, regardless of whether you like him, her, or not. You have to understand that your manager is an important resource to you and is an important element in your success. So you have to work with your manager. So here comes my next question. I just think about it, okay? And if you want to answer via the chat, do so. You really do not need to know your manager, especially if he or she is not that good. True or false? Okay? So as you can see, I'm challenging you here already. And believe it or not, lots of people think, yeah, it's not necessary for me to know my manager, even though the manager plays an important and highly critical role in your success. Because remember, your manager is the one who is deciding on your salary increase, on your promotion, on your resources. We give you the budget or not. You can see this person is playing an important part in your life as long as you are working with them. So get to know them. Okay, get to know your manager. So here we go. How do let's look at the review of the boss-subordinate relationship. So the boss and employee relationship is extremely important for productivity. Why? Because if you're not very good, if you are not in a good relationship with your manager, I'm willing to bet that your productivity is going to go down. So that is why it is very important that you have very good relationship with your manager. Okay. And if it is average, make it good. If it's good, make it very good. If it's very good, make it excellent. And of course, I'm a realistic person. Sometimes relationships also deteriorate, but always make sure that you put the effort and the investment to make a relationship work. And some of this is going to fall on your shoulders, not on your manager's shoulders. The second thing is that, do you trust your manager, and does your manager trust you? Now, trust is not something that's going to come overnight. So it's very important that you understand that trust starts usually by you doing your job, delivering on your goals, making sure that you are um, uh, um, keeping up your commitments, and that's how you start building that trust. And once the manager sees that there's somebody here that I can depend on, trust comes in. Okay, so this is very important, very important. And of course, it is very important that you also, um, you know, work on the cohesive side of things with your manager, because a poor relationship, unfortunately, leads into higher turnovers. So if you are a manager and you're losing employees, for example, the first thing I ask my colleagues or my participants or whoever I meet, how do you measure your style? Is your style something that is causing people to shy away from you or leave you or move to another department? I always ask the manager to become self-aware. So as you can see, the first section of this webinar is self-awareness. Who are you? What's your style? What's your management style? Because that immediately impact your relationship with your boss and others, specifically with your boss. Because as I said, the reason that we always focus on the you and your boss relationship, because it is very critical to your success. That being said, okay, how do you understand your managers? Well, there are many ways, okay? If you didn't know it already, the most significant factor impacting your job satisfaction is your manager, as I mentioned. So here are some ways that will help you take charge and start managing up. One is embrace the mission. What does your manager want? What does your director want? So that's very important. Why is he there? He wants success as much as you do. The second thing is understand their goals. What is it that they are after? What is it that the winning factor for them? What is it that they want to accomplish? Also, you can help them in accomplishing these things. And the other thing is that don't surprise your manager. Okay, your managers don't like to be surprised. You see the word manager. Manager means that you reduce the amount of surprise. And surprise, a bad surprise is a risk. A good surprise is good, but still he's surprised or she's surprised. So it's very important that you don't blindside or surprise your manager. Let them know before they know from other people. The other thing is that share with them what you are very good at. So that is why if I tell you what are your strengths and weaknesses, at least tell them, look, I'm good in this. I'm good with analytical skills. I can analyze data. I can fix problems. I can negotiate. I'm building relationships. Whatever. Just let them know that you are good at something. So this way they know how to use you. Okay. And by using you properly, you add value to the organization. Remember, your manager, he or she, they see value from a different angle because they are at a more senior level. So they also understand value probably, and you can learn from them about the value and the importance of value in the organization. And of course, always align your goals to their goals and try always to work a positive relationship. Many cases, what happens is that when your manager asks you something, you always turn to the negative. So what is it that this guy wants today? Why is he asking for this? Well, they want something from you because they need to finish certain things. So instead of thinking negative about the relationship, why don't you take it from a positive perspective? The other thing is, which I love a lot, is do you anticipate their needs? This means that working with your manager, you should be able to understand what is it that they want tomorrow. And if you can anticipate their needs, you become more proactive. Remember, being proactive is very important. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset that you have to develop toward yourself and your manager. So anticipating their needs is a very proactive thing. And I think it's going to go a long distance in them appreciating you. And then, of course, remember your job description. You have to understand your job. You have to understand your skills and capabilities, but you also have to understand your goals. And if you do all three very well, you are bound to do your job very well. If they are happy with you, this also goes a long distance. Now, of course, it comes to time management. try to maintain your commitment. And commitments, anything that you do, especially in our world, time is an important factor. Now, I'm surprised sometimes that some people don't take time seriously. But there is a increased awareness about these things. So it's very important you honor time, no matter what, no matter what. Time is an important resource for you to understand and to leverage. Then, of course, we have to um, an interesting saying I like to say here is under promise but over deliver. And if you use this formula all the time, I think you're going to be at a very good relationship with your manager. Now let's look at the next slide. In this slide, I also talk about how to decipher your manager. One of the key things is that, okay, Jamal, I buy this. You convince me. I'm gonna leverage my manager. So how do you understand your manager? How do you try to decipher their personality or their style? Okay. So one of the key things that we always ask is your manager an introvert? An introvert is a person who doesn't speak much, for example. They only give you very limited input or feedback. They don't like big events or something like that. They pretty much sit in their office and sometimes they close their doors. While an extrovert is somebody who's very much outgoing, somebody who is always engaging people. So as you can see, you have extremes here. Do you know your manager? Each personality requires a different approach. The second thing is, are you dealing with somebody who has a big picture or a detailed person? Now, somebody with a big picture, he's a visionary, somebody who is always coming up with ideas or encourage ideas. But you also have the detailed person who's always, picking on the smallest details. He's a micromanager, somebody who doesn't see the big picture. Again, you have to understand how to work with them. Is he a dominant person or is he an emotional person? A person who's dominant could be a task oriented person. They like to control everything. They don't give you a chance to do something. Delegation is not something in the dictionary. Why? Because they're dominant people. But on the other hand, you have emotional people who really understand you, who really feel with you. Again, who is your manager? So try to understand them. Try to decipher the DNA of your manager or your supervisor, your director. The other thing is he a person who usually systematic step by step, okay, toward a goal, always following step by step? Or are they very much reactive? So you have the proactive person who puts steps and plans things, and then you have the reactive person who in the last minute he remembers he has to do something or she has to do something. Again, this is something that you have to look at your manager. Understand your manager. It's important you decipher the DNA code. It helps you become better and it helps you reduce the stress between you and your manager. That being said, okay, what is your manager expecting from you? So one of the key things is that managers like predictability. I give you this goal, I want you to deliver. They don't like lots of drama, by the way. And that's why I'm saying don't try to surprise them. And the reason that they have you on their team, you as a manager, is to manage things. So that's why they don't like drama, but rather they want collaboration. And of course, somebody spontaneous, somebody who is, genuine, somebody who is, taking initiative, driving yourself, somebody that doesn't lie to people. So don't try to exaggerate. Don't try to make things up. Just say it as it is. Of course, enthusiasm is very important. I think this is a key characteristic. And think about it. When you get out of bed, you want to be enthusiastic about your job. Because if you don't like your job, maybe you should consider, think about what is it that's causing this displeasure, or maybe you're in the wrong job. At the end of the day, you have to be enthusiastic about your job. If you are, this means that you can give 150%. The other thing is continuous growth. So your manager likes to see in you a person who's trying to grow, trying to improve themselves. So sometimes they forget to send you for a training. Ask for it. Say, listen, I'm interested in taking this course. I'm interested in conducting this training online, a course outside, an exhibition, a conference. Always suggest these things. Yes, I know sometimes the budget is tight, but if you're adding value, you can also make a case that, look, because we're doing this, we managed to do this, and believe me, managers in many, many ways and many instances are very, very reasonable. Okay? So with that being said, I like to ask you the following, for example. Look at this. So, one of the key things is productive and respectful relationship between the boss and employees is one of the key things for a company to succeed. So, when there is a respectful relationship between you and your manager, the department works better, the success works better. Okay? And one of the key things is that one of the key things is when it comes to your boss's top priority, he likes to have hardworking people staying late and everything, but that's not necessarily the case. Because at the end of the day, if you are a productive person, you're working and you are efficient and you know how to manage yourself. Working hard doesn't mean that you put hours till 12 midnight. If you're doing this, I'm going to ask you about your work style. You might say, but my manager keeps me working there. Well, again, you're the manager. Remember the word manager. So you have to manage the relationship with your boss, because I want you to have a life outside work as well. So it's very important that, when you tackle these sensitive issues, your relationship becomes a deeper relationship with your manager, a meaningful relationship, rather than just a superficial relationship. Okay? Now, one of the key things that I like you to focus on as well when you're talking to your manager is that if you want to your relationship to go beyond where we get along fine and to something that will make your relationship much, much bigger, always think about the following 5 things. Always take initiative, have meetings with your manager, discuss what they're looking for, take initiative, demonstrate your innovation initiative, come up with ideas and share the ideas, always have open communication with them. I always come to the meeting with an agenda. Say, you know what, I'm thinking about the following items. I mean, it's good to say, I would like to have 5 minutes of you. I want you to take a break. I want you to take you out for a cup of coffee. That's good. If you have such a relationship with your manager, good for you. But at the end of the day, I want you to also know that always have your conversation as goal driven. So when you meet with your manager, have your goals ready. What is it that you want to have from that meeting? And it can be quite productive and quite exciting as well. And also, I want you to remember your boss is a human, and he is as a human, or she is as a human as you are. They have their needs as much as you do, and nothing beats a relationship when needs are met at the end of the day. He wants success, you want success. You want to grow, he wants to grow, or she wants to grow. So it's very important that you apply these 4 things. But the last one is very important. Be yourself. This is very, very critical here. The be yourself. Be yourself. Be genuine. Don't try to be somebody else. Now you might say, but Jamal, I like to be my boss. Okay, fine. You can take your boss as an example, but don't try to be your boss. Your boss has different characteristics. You may have different approaches. He may have different backgrounds. It's nice to take some of your boss's activities, especially if he's a good boss or she's a good boss, but try to be your own boss. Try to be yourself. Be genuine to yourself. Okay? Now, with the last slide in this section, some of the do's that I want you to focus on: always understand your manager's goal, build trust with your boss, always set feedback guidelines, especially if you are keen on feedback. So always say, what do you think? How am I doing? Especially this quarter, but don't do it on a daily basis. I mean, if you do it on a daily basis, you could be hurting yourself. He will get tired of you. So understand the do's here, but on the other side, please remember the don'ts. Don't get your manager caught off guard. Don't surprise them. Don't make it always about you. Remember, your manager, your director, or supervisor also has other managers. So it's not always about you. Remember, it's about the department, the work that you're doing, the value you're bringing in, or the department. And don't always be a yes person. One of the key things about manager is that you challenge in a professional way. You challenge things that you feel does not serve the company in the right way. I'm not asking you to be Mr. No all the time or to be the critical person all the time. That's not what I'm asking for. That's not what I'm advising for. I'm advising you that when there is something that could be detrimental to your success, to the department's success, to your people's success, to his success or her success as a director or supervisor or superior, you have to say it, okay? Especially if they go against the code of ethics of the company. And that's where we hear a lot in the news and on the radio and in the internet about things that actually are going against the ethical, business environment of an organization. So this is a challenge for you. So always make sure the do's are done and make sure that the don'ts are covered. Okay. Now here comes the third part of the webinar is your employees, and this is very, very critical. And at the end of the day, your employees are looking up to you. So here comes the question. I'm going to ask you the following question. The best approach to managing employees is to boss them around. What do you think? Now, the thing about it is that many people think that this is the right approach, and bossing people around is the best sign that you're a manager. Well, unfortunately, it is not. As a matter of fact, there are lots of research and lots of studies and lots of data that bossing people around does not produce the desired results all the time. As a matter of fact, they only deliver them on a very short period of time. After that, people need something else. They need a boss who's understanding, who knows how to develop them, who delegate to them, who develop the right atmosphere, environment. And believe me, there are lots of studies for that. So bossing people around is not the right answer. As a matter of fact, think about your management style. So here comes selection process of your team. You as a manager, if you are new or you have been in this position for a time, you know that it's very important you select the right people. Select the people who will make the department better, the company better, will make you better. But remember, I did not start with you. You have to select the people who make the company better. So what do you look for? So it's very important that you understand that hiring the best people is one of the most critical things that you'll ever do in your life. So you should always view selecting a new employee as an investment in order to make the company better, because one employee or two or three, whoever that you select very well, they will have a fantastic return on investment over time. So Alan Hall from Forbes.com says that always, whenever you are looking for candidates, focus on the 7 C's. What are they? Number one is competence. Are you selecting people who are competent? This is very, very critical. Do they have the capabilities? This is number two. Are they able to do the job? Are they compatible with my culture, with the culture of the company? Are they committed? Do they have the character? Do they have the culture sensitivity? Do they are, what is the compensation? What kind of salary do I have to pay them? So of course, when you look at these 7 things, it's very important that, you're not going to have a perfect match. If you do, good for you. But there will always be gaps. For example, an employee doesn't have the capabilities, so you have to train them because then he has or she has the character. They sound that they are committed, but the capability is weak. Maybe they are not competent. Well, you can work on that. That's why you're the manager. Maybe they are not committed. Maybe you can work on that. Compensation, the same thing. So there will always be gaps. But you try to look at these things, at these 7 characteristics, and make sure that you select the right people. Remember, you as a manager, you have to spend your time on the right thing. People that you hire, you're going to be spending time on managing them. But successful hirees, people that you bring to the organization, are those that you manage and then they manage themselves. Those participants or employees who manage themselves, this is a blessing for the manager. Why? Because they have shown over time that they are committed, they can manage themselves, they know how to move toward their goals, they are culture sensitive. This means that you have freed up your time from managing them to doing the right things and what's important for your job. So please remember that. I want you to remember that. That's very, very critical. So these 7 C's is a good entry point to selecting the people. But in addition to that, I want you to know your staff. It's very, very important that you get to know your people. Who are they? What do they like? What motivates them? One way in order to break down such barriers is have an open door policy. Never close your door unless you have a one-on-one or you have an important call. But there is no other reason to close your door, honestly, because you're the manager. You want people to go in and out. And of course, people will respect your time when you say, listen, guys, I'm working for the next hour. People will not bother you. Believe me, people are smart. You are smart. So don't underestimate the intelligence of people. The second thing is you can spend some time with them outside work. You can have a game of soccer or football. You can go for a bowling night. You can go for, have a beer with them or have a cup of coffee, whatever you want. Sometimes it's good to know your people, your individuals. You may have a lunch one day, take them out for lunch, like what happened today. My the board of director, Dr. Ramsey, took us out for lunch today. and it was a joy. It was a joy to be with him. Okay. Then recognize the achievements. That's feedback. When your people do something good, don't hold back. Say, you know what, good job. I think what you did here is very, very good. And recognition of achievement come in different forms. Could be verbal, thank you, and it could be something that if they do something really, really outstanding, don't forget to compensate them accordingly. And of course, supporting them. That is one of your key roles, is supporting others. Please don't understand that supporting others is one of your prime goals. Why? Because they are expecting you to open doors for them, remove obstacles, help them solve problems, help them make decisions, and that's support. So let them know that you are there for them. Okay? So this is knowing your staff. You have to know your staff. Once you have your people in, once you hire the people, do you get to know them? Invest in this investment. It's very critical you do that. Now, that being said, you as a supervisor, leader, or manager, okay, you have to make sure that your expectations are clear. What do you expect from them? And this means that they also have to understand the expectations. One way expectations is not good enough. You have to understand, and they have to understand your expectations. So I can say something in terms of expectations, but they don't understand it. So we haven't done anything. Is it a one-way communication? So it's very important that you clarify what your expectations are, make them clear, let them repeat what your expectations are, ask them, do they understand it? Know where the expectations are required. It's very, very important they know what are the expectations. Help your employees understand the big picture. Tell them or help them understand how their work is impacting the organization. Make sure that you always meet and discuss such expectations. And this could be the annual review, could be the monthly review if you have one, could be just a regular chat on a daily basis. Make sure that the expectations are mutual. This means that you and them, they understand you understand the expectations very, very well. This means that you are reading from the same book, from the same page. Write down the expectations. I think this is very critical. And you have expectations that back your goals. So that's why it's important to write these expectations and get agreement and commitment. Do they agree to it? Setting expectations is one thing, agreeing to it is very important. So this is talking about your employees. Now let's talk about the last part of it, talking with your employee, with your peers. Now, we talked about your relationship with yourself. We talked about your relationship with your manager. We talked about your relationship with your employees. But how about your peers? Now, here comes the next question. It's not important to build a good working relationship with other managers in the organization. No. You might say, Jamal, come on, you're pulling my leg. Well, in many ways, lots of people forget that this is one of the most important elements of success, because you as a manager, you have to find ways to work with others. It's not always, managing people. It's managing relationship with others. And it's not always managing up, it's managing across. So you have to understand that as much as you are a manager, head of a division, head of a section, head of a department, there are other people like you, and all of you are serving the organization. So you're going to find ways in order to work together. So this is very, very critical that you find ways to work together. And this is sometimes is very, very much political. So it's very important you understand how important it is to have a strong relationship with your peer managers, because there's a benefit here. And this benefit come in multiple ways. One, it can mitigate the reaction you get when you can't dedicate as much time to a project as others would like. For example, if you don't have time, you might ask a peer to give you some resources. It can result in a better feedback, for example, because people in general want to help out. That's true. So some people might say, what do you think of this manager? And surprisingly enough, it's the people who give the feedback are usually your peers, because they work with you. And the other thing is that you can also influence approval for headcounts and projects. Remember, when you're asking for resources, you're asking for budget, they are asking for resources and they are asking for budgets. So you're all competing for a very limited pool. And that is important for you to remember. It can also, when you're doing change in the organization, and man, if I talk about change, it's the story of today. Change is happening all over the place. So every month there is a change initiative. So it's very important you understand that they will be an integral part of any change that you want to do. Because change is not only impacting you, it's impacting everybody. And then, of course, it can develop a very healthy working environment. So imagine, suppose that you develop a nice working environment, but you are by yourself. The organization as a whole needs to be healthy. This means that when you develop a healthy environment and your peer develop a healthy environment and the other manager develops a healthy environment, then the whole organization is feeling happy and content, and everybody is happy and content. And when you develop a happy organization, people stay, people stick around. That's why people choose their manager. So don't underestimate your role. You are an integral part in attracting people, keeping people, managing people, developing people. Okay? So that is why working with your peer is very important. And when you are developing workplace relationship with other peers and manager, it's important that you pay attention to certain things. Okay? Getting to know your peers is an important part of your job. How can you do that? Well, pay attention how they prefer to communicate. Some people like to communicate via email. Some people like face to face. Understand how they operate. And you see, you thought that your manager is the only one demanding how they want to for you to understand. No, you have to understand people. You see, at the end of the day, it's an investment that you have to make. So understand what is the preferred way of communication. Second is being thoughtful about the messages you are sending around. One of the key things is that we forget the email the minute it moves out, then you get that strong reaction from a manager. Of course, you have heard them, you have said something inadvertently, you have accused them maybe of something. So what I'm saying is that think about very carefully about the note that you want to send. The other thing is understand their priorities. Remember, in the first couple of slides, we talked about your priorities. How about their priorities? So also you have to make sure that there will be a time when your priorities will meet. So it's very important that you think about that. Take time to explain the why you're doing this. Keep them in the loop. If it's an important project and they are part of it, keep them in the loop. And the last thing that I want you to avoid is avoid exploiting relationship. And this is sometimes, would cause some negative reaction. So be consistent in your approach. Be honest, be genuine, but don't try to exploit a relationship. It doesn't go far, and people will run away from you because next time you want something from them, they will not be very helpful. So remember, you as well as your peer managers are always vying for resources, influence, and approvals. So it's very important that you think of the bigger picture because as you move up the ladder in the organization, this is what's going to happen. So what do you need to do in this case? Get to know where the other person is coming from and they want something so badly because some people, you're going to be negotiating with peers, huh? You're going to be influencing and negotiating, but you cannot boss them around. You might argue your case logically. So always make sure that you're ready with some facts and data so that you can, you're prepared. Be aware of your communication style, and your body language. It's very important that you know which language you're using, the words you're using. I always ask you to be positive, try to be positive. Negative will not take you a long distance. You might shout at somebody, but shouting is not my preferred approach. I think you can always say something without shouting at somebody. Always keep the discussion as cordial and respectful. So these 5 elements are integral when it comes to dealing with your peers, as well as you can use them with your boss, as well as with your employees. So as you can see that we have some common grounds here that I would like you to apply. The importance of making allies. Now, remember, your peers can be your best allies or you can be your worst enemies. So I want you to have the best allies as possible. So because you will need their help, sometimes they will lend a hand, give you a resource, support you with some budget. So why not? As a matter of fact, he is or she is could be the most likely person to give you support for your views and cause. Let's say that you have a change initiative. They might be the ones who stand up and say, you know what? I think that Jamal is right, and we need to do this. All of a sudden, because of the relationship that you have built, you have something good going for you. They also help you solve problems, provide advice, as well as a sounding board for the things that you are doing. Now, that being said, it is very important to make allies, always develop lines of communication, exhibit total professionalism. Don't take the always take the high road. Always take the high road, and always put your best effort toward making a successful project or a successful relationship, a project or a relationship successful. Always put your best effort and keep your promises. Be an ally yourself. You don't want them to be allies only to you. Alliance is not a one-way street. It is a two-way street. Treat your allies as equals. Spend time with them. Choose your battles. Choose your battles. I'm not saying that you always have to win and you always have to, or you have to lose all the time. No, sometimes you have to stand up and say, you know, guys, I don't support this. I have to do this. So sometimes you win some, you lose some. The best thing is when you win-win, both of you are winning. And then, of course, resolve conflicts in the most cordial, the most professional way, and the sooner the better. Don't let it go for a long time. It doesn't win. It doesn't leave a good taste if you keep it going and festering for a long time. And never say anything about your peers. You think that nobody knows. Everything gets exposed for some reason. Now, the last section is working within your culture and your organization. And pretty much we're wrapping up right now. So one of the key things I want you to remember that you as a manager, it is important. So here comes the question. You as a manager, it is important to consider your company's culture when developing a working relationship with your employees. True or false? Well, I think you know the answer for that one. I think you're smart enough to know that the answer is yes. It is very important to consider your company's culture when you're developing a relationship with your employees or other people. Culture is very, very strong. For example, I mentioned that Merck has been around for 60 years. Trust me, we have our culture. We have the way of doing things. And employees, every employee at Merck understand the culture of Merck and they love it. Some of them, they don't like it that much, but in general, we understand the culture of Merck. And if you don't fit, you won't fit. But if you fit, man, you have a career with this company. So it's very important you understand the work that you do in the organization. So that being said, company culture is the shared values and practices and beliefs of the company's employees. This means that people share common values, share common views, they do similar things, similar activities, and while you cannot see it, it's there. This is how powerful culture can be. And in many ways, it can present itself through the actions and behavior of how people think in an organization. It's not easy, but it is there. And sometimes you cannot see it, but it is there as well. So it's very important you understand the culture. So to understand the culture, I want you to ask the following questions. Ask for an example of when the members of the organization came together to do something remarkable. If you are new to an organization, that would be nice to understand. Or if you are in the interview, imagine that they're interviewing you to hire you for a position and you like to know about the culture. This is something you might ask. Ask about something that members did to do something remarkable. They might tell you, we did a blood donation drive. Wow, so this company is into charity. Something like that. Ask about examples who succeeded wildly within the boundaries of the organization. How do you measure success? This also tells you about whether the organization really supports success or not. How does the firm celebrate? How do we celebrate success? How do we celebrate birthdays? Now that's something interesting. Are the firm's executive approachable? Are people in this company willing to listen to you? And if you say no, usually we don't, and you are an open person and you are a person who likes to, talk and everything, this might be the wrong company for you. But if executives are approachable, they are willing to talk and listen to you, and you are that kind of a person, maybe you have found a home. Because believe me, you spend a big chunk of your life in a certain company. And sometimes people spend between 20 to 25, sometimes you retire with a company. So don't you want to work for a company that can give you a home? How does the organization innovate? Now, that's an interesting one. Again, is your company innovative or very, very, dormant? They do what they do best, but they don't innovate. But if you're an innovative person, a creative person, you will have an issue there, okay? So make sure that you're selecting the right one. Now, that being said, dealing with workplace politics, I do caution you, be very, very good at the politics game. Even the best companies have politics. So always play good politics, but stay away from bad politics. Because at the end of the day, what goes around comes around. So I want you to make sure that you practice the good politics in the workplace. And the best thing to do are the ethical politics. Now, that being said, I want you to understand that dealing with workplace politics means, understanding the political behavior and the network that you have in the workplace. Some tips to do that: analyze the organizational chart. Look at the chart. How are people distributed? And you have a formal organizational chart and you have an informal organizational chart. The formal is what we tell people, investors, customers about. The informal is who influences who. So it's very important you understand, the influencers in the organization. Build connections, make most of your network, neutralize negative politics, understand the informal network. That's what I just talked about. Develop your people skills and be brave but not naive. I don't want you to just take everything at its face value. Unfortunately, no matter what you do, you will always have the hidden agenda of some people. So always make sure that you're aware of that. With this, I come to the end of my presentation. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to be with us today. If you'd like to have a copy of this presentation, my email is there, jsaeed@meirc.com. Send me an email and tell me, Jamal, I'd like to have a copy of this presentation. I also ask you to visit our website, www.meirc.com. You will find a very rich portfolio of courses, and make sure that you let me know or let our team know. We have a chat box in our website. Let them know which courses you like to attend. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Look me up. I'd love to add you to my LinkedIn network. I'll be honored if you do that. Last but not least, we have one course coming up very soon in a couple of weeks. I hope to see you there if you're interested. And this is it for now. I want to thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to wish you all the best. Here are some references that I like you to remember. Leaders Eat Last, Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't, from Simon Sinek. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I tell you, this book is a fantastic book from Dale Carnegie. I want you to get it because this talks about relationships. And the last one is On Managing People from the HBR or Harvard Business Review, 10 must-reads. So this is very important. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I look forward to having you and hosting you on future webinars. Take care and all the best.
Meirc.com